Welcome into Jungle Tales, the Pirate Baseball podcast. On deck for East Carolina is a trip down to Conway to take on the 16th ranked Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. And right now, to preview the Chants, I'm very excited to be rejoined by the man, Joe Katz. Joe, we appreciate your time.
Hey, absolutely, man. Looking forward to a great weekend of baseball as it was last June for June for the regional. And then, of course, last year up at your place, we had one heck of a series that went down to the wire. So should be some great baseball on tap, another great crowd. And it looks like the weather is going to cooperate for the entire weekend as well. So that's always a plus.
Yeah, no doubt. Notice you have the shades on. How is the weather right there in Conway and Myrtle Beach presently?
I mean, beautiful, 70 degrees, and looks like these temperatures are going to hold out for the weekend. Maybe a shower or two later in the day Sunday, but it looks like we should be able to get all three in on time as scheduled. So that's a plus this time of year. You know that very well.
Yeah, and that's great to hear. I looked at the extended forecast here in the greater Charlotte area, and I knew for the next week and a half, it was going to be anywhere from 70 to 80. So I could only imagine how nice it would be down there in Conway. Should be a heck of a series. Glad that this is being played. And last year, the Chants took 2 out of 3 at Clark LeClaire. You had the Ethan Norby game where he just did something that was unfathomable, especially against a team of Coastal's caliber, and that's striking out 19. The Chants bounced back to win the series, including an extra inning game in Game 3. But what are your thoughts on this series as a whole before we dive into this year specifically?
I mean, there's no question, right? I mean, two of the elite. I don't even like to call them mid-major, but two of the elite non-Power 4 teams across the country, and to be able to develop this rivalry over the last couple of years, I think it's a win-win for the baseball programs. In terms of your RPI strength of schedule when it comes down to it. Obviously, along with a tough midweek slate that both of us line up on any given year of the season, and last year lived up to the bill, obviously at your place, and then the regional was, an exceptionally interesting way it all played out, of course, with that late game that started, after 10 o'clock, the first game, and then, that was one heck of a night from what most people remember, if they hung out through the monsoon and walking around those tailgates and into the back seats of cars. I mean, it kind of was reminiscent of my college days, albeit 20 years removed. And I had to be on my best behavior that night so I could, deliver the radio play-by-play, which was a difficult task. I would assume the way it is in Greenville, over in Conway. We are two schools that enjoy having a good time. So that night was an awesome, well-played game. And then obviously the regional final worked out for us well, and on the way to a 26-game winning streak all the way up to the College World Series final. So one heck of a season that was, and that's the thing. That's what it was. And I joined the baseball program after the championship run in 2016. So, naturally the fan base is going to want to compare, contrast. Where were we last year at this time? Where are we now? And that's the thing, I guess, with fans. You look through the internals of your roster, your personnel. On paper, we might be, right where we expect to be in terms of competing potentially for not only a conference, regional, super regional, but a chance to go to Omaha every year. That's sort of the standard, but it doesn't always work out as scripted on paper due to injuries, due to guys either under or overperforming. There's always one of those two guys that are going to overperform that you never really had on your radar, guys that are going to underperform, and obviously it just a very small sample size. So college baseball, given the weather that we had this year. We had new turf installed in our field moving into the season. So a lot of the fall was kind of a wash, and then we were slow out of the gates because of the weather, just in terms of live at-bats. So, without making any judgment call as to where we'll end up, obviously, later on this year come May, you need to get a good 15, 20 games in before you really start to figure out, where your guys are at, who's the best suited to match up against any given pitcher on a Friday night, like against Norby. And in addition to that, obviously, with the injury bug we got, there's some things that we're trying to hash out on the pitching mound. But given the pedigree that we've had, along with East Carolina, also off to kind of a touch-and-go start, we got all the faith in the world, obviously, in our coaching staff, as you do yours, that we're going to right the ship. We've got some great baseball players that are, I think, just maybe pressing a little bit, maybe trying to find their own way here, given some of the circumstances that have been presented to us moving into this season, new challenges, and that's kind of the way you have to look at it every time you enter the year.
Yeah, East Carolina 7-5, 7-5-1 now. And the Chants, I believe, 7-5 after that midweek loss, 6-4 to the highly ranked NC State Wolfpack up at Doak Field in Raleigh. But you mentioned the injuries that's been well documented. Don't want to beat it to death, but we certainly have to talk about it, in my opinion, and that is, you have Dominic Carbone, thought to be potentially the best closer, short reliever in college baseball, known as the Godfather by Aaron Fitt of D1 baseball. And then you have Cameron Flukie, the Friday night guy, thought by many to be the top pitcher in the country. And then Hayden Johnson, the big lefty, he also has a stress fracture of a different sort, his with the elbow as opposed to Flukie's with his ribs. And then I think you may even be short one more arm. But tell us about those 3 or 4 top arms that are out, and just how the Chants have dealt with such blows to their pitching staff.
Yeah, obviously don't replace guys like Cameron Flukie, Hayden Johnson, Dominic Carbone, and Ryan Lynch is the fourth man who was huge out of the back end of our bullpen last year. He's working himself back, and I would expect him, so long as he progresses the way we expect him to be back here in the next week or so, likely unavailable for this weekend series. But you don't replace, as I said, guys like Flukie. Hayden Johnson was penciled in to be our number 2 starter this year, to make the transition from the back end of the bullpen into a reliever, or from back end of the bullpen to a starter, rather. And, just his build, his makeup, I think, lends to him being a starting pitcher as he's progressed with both his physical and mental capabilities here now moving into his junior year. Just unfortunate, obviously, for Flukie. I don't think I've ever heard of a stress fracture to a rib from a pitcher, and he's kind of miffed as to how this all went down as well. He's in as good a spirits as he could be in. Obviously, this was going to be a huge year for him, and it's not over yet. I mean, you look at the time frame, at least that's been laid out to us from the coaching staff, 8 weeks, and that was a week or so ago. That would pencil him in for maybe late April. So, if everything goes according to plan, he could still end up with 3 or 4 starts in the regular season, build him up, and so long as we're able to weather this storm and focus on winning the weekends, which in years like this year, I think winning the weekend will be a huge accomplishment. We kind of see where the midweeks go. I mean, you lose 2 preseason All-American pitchers in the back end of their bullpen. You lose a preseason All-American who was being talked about as a potential top 10 round 1 draft pick. I mean, I don't care who you are, how much depth you have. There's going to be, a taller mountain that you're going to have to climb. I think pitching coach Matt Williams, National Assistant Coach of the Year 1 year ago, is working through that. For instance, just the other day against NC State, I mean, we threw 3 freshmen and we're in the ball game until late. In fact, our first freshman arm has let up just 1 run over 4 appearances this year. Case Bosch, he was followed by Jackson Smollett's a sinker baller, heavy ground ball type pitcher, and then Daniel Parker, who came to us after a redshirt year, a guy with a live fastball that's still working on adding a few pitches. But you go, 3 pitchers against a team that put up 90 runs last week in 5 games. I think that gives you a lot of confidence that even with these young arms, the more and more experience they get, the better off we'll be in the back end of the year. And then you add a Cameron Flukie to the rotation, and you mix in a Ryan Lynch on the back end of the bullpen. I think things will start to fall into place, and it just hopes that we can swing the bat the way we're capable of, and get going at the plate, hoping that we're able to mix and match the pitching staff so they're not so overtaxed, meaning the top half of that pitching staff, just so we're able to soak those innings up and put us in positions to win the game late in ball games.
Yeah, unfortunately, we won't get that Ethan Norby, Cameron Flukie matchup that we had anticipated. But with that being said, tell us who the Chants rotation will be for East Carolina. It'll be Ethan Norby, Gavin Van Kempen, and Colby Weber.
Well, I wish I could give you more than probably Luke Jones on Friday, who was predominantly our midweek starter last year. And he's a sophomore out of Greenville. He's got a different kind of look. He was extremely successful, picked up a couple of wins over Clemson last year. He's a guy that will throw the sweeper. He'll mix in a fastball and sinker type ball as well. So the thing with Jones is At times you think he might lose just his mental focus, and you can see it on the mound when he's not as consistent attacking the strike zone the way we would like him to do. But granted, having said all that, he had his best outing of the year back on Friday down in Houston against the Texas Longhorns, and kept us in the ball game through the 5 innings he was on the mound. So that's indicative of the leap forward that he is hopefully taking start by start. All the confidence in the world that he'll be able to, equal, match, or potentially better Norby. Obviously, 19 strikeouts last year. We remember that a little bit. Norby, obviously, you guys all know well. He is a guy that likes to quick pitch, so I'd expect a lot of guys staring at the umpire as much as possible behind home plate before they lock eyes with him to try and delay as much as they can so they can get themselves set in the box. I thought he really took advantage of that last year, and our guys just were ill prepared on top of the fact that he was landing every pitch that he has in his arsenal and was pretty much throwing any pitch he wanted, when he wanted, and how he wanted, and where he wanted. So on nights like that, you just tip your cap, and we were able to bounce back last year. But I would expect Friday night to be a great game. And as I said, great atmosphere. It'll be our first 6 o'clock Friday night game. So they'll allow some extra time for the fans to pour in, and hopefully should be a great contest moving into a great weekend. Outside of Jones, Ross Norman has gone on the Saturdays for us, but he's been roughed up last couple of starts. It's a kid from Georgia State who transferred in, 6'8". He's got electric stuff, great live fastball, 93 to 96. He's got the breaking ball and a changeup. I think for Ross, he's been able to get ahead of hitters. He's just pitching too much to the fat of the plate. And when you pitch to the fat of the plate, even if you've got a 96-mile-an-hour fastball, good teams are going to barrel you up. And that's just kind of how it played out last week against UTSA, and then the week prior against the Fighting Illini. If he can weather the storm early, a lot of pitchers, especially power pitchers, early in the games is when you can often get at them, and that's been the case the last 2 starts. I think he needs to, and he's learning through this. He comes from a Georgia State program where he didn't enjoy a lot of success. He had a plus, I want to say, 7 ERA last year. So I think just learning the mentality that we have here at Coastal, that every time you take the mound, there are expectations for you not only to perform, but and even if you don't perform to your best, to leave us in a position to win a baseball game after you exit the contest, no matter when that might be, even if the pitch count is up and you give us an earlier outing than we would hope. A guy that, so long as he can nibble around the plate, utilize that fastball, especially with 2 strikes, a lot of 2-strike hits last week against UTSA. He's a guy that we're going to need to take a step forward. I mean, obviously, given the shorthandedness, as we've highlighted on the pitching staff, so long as we can get some quality starts, and not maybe by the standard of 5 or more innings and less than 3 runs, get us into the 4th, into the 5th. I feel like we got enough pieces in the back end that are going to give us a chance to win a lot of baseball games, including this weekend.
Kind of shifting over and talking about the lineup, you definitely have names that are very familiar: Mijos, Thorndike, Pato, etc. So if you would go through some of them that have really been playing well thus far through the first 12 games, and then additions, a name that I reckon or did not recognize, that I don't know if he is a freshman or if he is a transfer into the program. Is it Trace Mazon?
Trace Mazon. He's a Texas kid. He comes to us from the JUCO, or the JUCO ranks, so to speak, Weatherford College, and a guy who's been swinging the stick real well for us. He's been one of our top hitters to the early portion of the season. So the way it's gone as of late, you got Mijos as the table setter. This kid is taking so many strides forward during his college career, and that started, of course, as a shortstop when he first came to Coastal as a freshman. We transitioned him into center field, and he hasn't missed a beat. Last year, he missed 6 weeks towards the end of the season with a broken bone in his hand after getting hit by a pitch up at JMU. Missed the entire run all the way to Omaha. We get him back in Omaha, and he turns in an all-College World Series tournament performance, and he's picked up right where he left off. He's a kid that hits for contact. He can go to all fields. He's got great speed in the outfield. Already has 3 outfield assists as well, lending to his arm strength. Obviously, as a shortstop in the center field position, that's just a plus. He's the table setter. Mazan, a guy who's hit safely in every game that he's played. So those 2 atop the order have been kind of the fixtures early on through these 12 games. And then as we roll through the middle and back end of the lineup, it's kind of been a mix and match. Same guys, just different spots in the order. And I think that a lot has to do maybe with the matchup that we're facing, in addition to the fact that we've got some depth out there. So we're plugging and playing at the shortstop position right now, still trying to find that ironclad guy who can go out there day to day. Get your corner outfield positions, Jordan Taylor, a kid from Jacksonville, Florida, Stetson transfer, Rex Watson, California kid from San Diego, and then, as you mentioned, Blagan Pato. Those three are kind of rotating in the corner outfield positions right now. So that is just dependent on who's swinging the hot stick right now and matchup indicative. Third base, Walker Mitchell returning, a guy who plays a solid third base defensively, a kid who led the country last year in times he was hit by pitch. We were the nation's leader in hit by pitch last year. So a guy who's going to get on the bases and really jam things up and gum up the works for an opposing pitching staff. Blake Barthel at second base has been a staple since a freshman, hoping that he can get the bat going as he's kind of stumbled out of the gates, along with Colby Thorndike, who's been putting together more quality at-bats here over the last week. But both of those two have struggled just a bit, kind of slumping to start the year. And if we can get them guys swinging the bats the way they're capable of, there'll be good things for the Chanticleer offense and lineup. And then behind the plate, obviously, huge shoes to fill. First round draft pick and Caden Bodine no longer with us. So right now, Domenico Tazzi, freshman last season, mainly a designated hitter. He's been getting a majority of the catching duties for us. And then Bryce Estep behind him. You may see him later on in the weekend. And we also have another young guy, Cole Chamberlain, who comes to us from transferring out of Texas. Didn't see a ton of time with the Longhorns last year. We like his bat. It's just a matter of trying to figure out how we can get him at bats. He's a left-handed hitter, so I don't think that we'll see him probably against Norby. He got his first start against NC State back on Tuesday. So, again, there are 3 or 4 positions in the lineup and defensively out in the field that we're still trying to find that guy who's going to stand up and above the rest. But as I said, those first 3-4 weeks of the season, 20 games into the year, that's when those things start to sort themselves out naturally. And I think our coaching staff, real patient in making sure that we get these guys at bats so we get a real good look as to, how we're going to progress moving into conference play coming up in a few weeks.
Well, Joe, we certainly appreciate nearly 20 minutes of your time today previewing what should be a heck of a series. Tell folks how they can follow you on social media and how they can tune into your radio show that you do daily.
Yeah, so you can follow me on social at JoeCats19. That's JoeCats19. I'm there on Instagram and Twitter. And then if you'd like to tune into our broadcast for baseball, I'm on the radio in the Myrtle Beach area at Rock 107.1 FM. And then we also have our mobile app where you can follow us and listen there. And then if you are in town tomorrow, or if you're just looking to keep in the know with some things going on around the Myrtle Beach area, I host a talk show 6 to 10 in the mornings on Hot Talk 99.5 FM in Myrtle Beach. And then you can follow on our website at WRNN.net.
Thanks so much. Great stuff. Again, we really appreciate it. And we look forward to catching up with you down the road. Hopefully we'll see you this weekend there at Springsbrook Stadium.
Yeah. Hey, if you need anything while you're down this way, just give me a holler. You got my contact info. I'll be happy to do whatever I can to make it easier for you. From a coverage standpoint, in terms of the fan base, I heard the game's being played down at the Pelican Stadium in Myrtle Beach this weekend, so you can head on that way. I'm not sure what's going on in Conway, so I wouldn't mind not seeing as much purple and gold as I did last year during the Regions.
Gotcha. But again, we can always count on Joe Cats to bring the jokes, bring the sense of humor. But obviously, this is a tremendous series, and I know the Chants fans and Pirate fans are in agreement on that. But here's to a fun weekend of baseball and continued success for yourself personally with everything you do radio-wise. But Pirate Nation, that is Joe Cats, the play-by-play voice of the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Be sure to follow us on social media at Jungle Tales Pod on X and Instagram. We'll talk to you soon. And as always, go Pirates.